Hello and welcome to It's a Code You mental health support for those working in healthcare. This is a podcast created for healthcare employees to explore not only issues relating to mental and emotional health, but also unique challenges that those working in healthcare are faced with. Your hosts are Adina Tucker, a licensed clinical social worker with Dartmouth Health, and Jennifer Hinsey, an MSW also with Dartmouth Health. Hello and welcome to It's a Code You. Today we're going to be talking about comparing ourselves to others. It's a common thing that we've all done at some point or another in our lives. Maybe our parents used to compare us to others growing up, and then society and expectations about the roles we play in life reinforce comparison to others to see how we might measure up. And when we chronically use self comparison to measure our success or our goodness, it can really negatively affect our self esteem. So, today we're going to get into the topic of self comparison.
First, let's talk a little bit about what social comparison theory is and how it actually plays into the act of self comparison. Now, social comparison theory was developed by a social psychologist named Leon Festinger in 1954. Basically, the idea behind this theory, or SCT, as we might refer to it, is that there is a need and a drive to get an accurate self evaluation within each of us. We've all felt that at some point or another. We want to know how we measure up in our attractiveness, our intelligence, and our success. Now, while there is this drive to evaluate ourselves, how society has changed has influenced how we do this and how often we find ourselves comparing. How often do we compare ourselves to others when evaluating ourselves? Well, the idea of upward social comparison is when someone compares themselves to someone that they believe is actually better than them. For some people, it can serve as a way to motivate them to work harder or even push themselves outside of their comfort zone. On the other hand, there's also the idea of downward social comparison. And that's when we compare ourselves to others that we believe are worse off than we are. This allows us to feel better about our own situations or ourselves as people. While there can be benefits to self comparison by using either upward or downward social comparison, it can also lead to negative feelings, things like decreased self worth and lower confidence. One thing that's interesting, however, is that research shows that while we all engage in some sort of social comparison, women tend to do so more than men. While social media has been around for a while now, we are still working on understanding the links between social media and our mental health. But we're going to discuss in just a bit what research seems to be showing us about social media and its effects when it comes to self comparison.
Let's talk a little bit about how social media plays a part in self comparison. So, we've all had moments of logging into social media and seeing someone posting their perfect holiday or vacation or just another perfect weekend. And if you've been having a hard time, maybe you've been struggling in your relationship, or maybe you felt like your vacation wasn't as great or as grand. And those moments of seeing what other people present on social media can really negatively affect us. And I'm wondering now, Jen, if you have any personal insights or experiences with social media and self comparison.
Sure. Yeah. I will say one thing about social media that I've noticed how it affects me personally is like sometimes in terms of events that I've gone to that I know other folks have gone to, or even if they're people I don't even know, perfect strangers even, right? But you can like see posts, right? Whether that's for events that are in your personal life or like, right, just you can see so many different posts. But anyway, there have been times I've actually questioned my own perception of the experience I had at the event because I'll come away from that event or whatever it is like, that wasn't as great as I thought it would be, or oh, I was kind of disappointed, right? Something like that. But then when I see it reflected back on social media, whether that's like folks in my personal circle or like, again, perfect strangers, I have had this experience where it seems so much better. Like they've had such like a way better time. And then I start questioning myself like, oh, am I a stick in the mud? Oh, was there something wrong with me? Right? Like it has given me moments where I've questioned, am I having enough fun? Right? Things like that. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I think it's an interesting point of that, not everything is for everybody too, but I think that part of the thing that happens with social media is that sometimes you get that feeling of, "Oh, there must be something wrong with me," or "Why don't I feel the way this person did?" And you forget that, yeah, maybe you just weren't really into that thing and something else that you would go to and think is amazing, that person might have been like, "That was terrible."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not necessarily a reflection of something lacking in us personally. Just, yeah, some things are not for everyone, and that's okay. Yeah.
Something I struggled with a lot when my kids were younger was people post people, or at least the group, the people on social media that I saw a lot were like other young moms, and so a lot of them would post like all these like, look at this perfect lunch I made for my child, or look how amazing my child is. And I had a child with that was strong-willed and had like anxiety and some other things. And so sometimes things were like super hard and not a lot of parents understood, and it felt very isolating. And then I would see like all these posts about stuff, or like people posting pictures from their vacation, or kids are so happy, and I'm thinking, so I started doing this thing of just posting, but I would just post whatever was happening. So my favorite example of this is we had gone to Disney World, and I think my daughter was maybe around 3 or 4, somewhere around there. And she went through a phase of not wanting her picture taken and getting very angry and very aggressive about it. And I had paid for their little photo pass package, so that meant any of the little photographers that were around, we could go up to them and they'd scan it on our little card. And at the end, I'd have all these pictures. And we had signed up for all of because both of them were into the princesses and things, all of the meet and greets. And she was just being so ornery about it, and I was just like, "That's fine." And so I started the first time it happened was we were I just walked in a park, and she actually got ticked off and was like, "No." And she was wearing like a cone hat that was supposed to be Rapunzel, so it was, like, purple and had all this tapestry on it, and a long braid attached to it, and she went and stood, like, I don't know, like, 15, 20 feet behind us with her back to us, and she, like, walked away, and the photographer's like, "What's her name?" And I was like, "No, can you just take the picture, please?" And they were just like, "No, but what's her come on, honey." And I was like, It's really fine. I'm gonna enjoy this picture for years to come." And when I saw the picture later, you could see 3 of us standing there, and then in the background, you see a little girl standing with her arms straight, her back down, and her head kind of tilted down, like, in this very angry stance, just, like, in the background. It's, like, one of my favorite pictures. But I remember posting that, and, like, some of the other ones where, like, we'd be all standing there, and she would literally just turn her head backwards, so all you could see is the back of her head, and all of these pictures, and I posted all of them. And I had so many people message me and be like, "Thank you for posting that." Sometimes it feels like I'm the only one who's like kids are unhappy somewhere where like we're told they're supposed to be happy and enjoying themselves and whatever. I think that it can be really hard as parents because people want to present sometimes a false sense of what it's like, when actually like it would be much better for connection if we were all just like, yeah, like I spent all this money and my kid screamed the entire time and whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. The real life, the authentic version of what life is, you know? Yeah. That's great. That's a great story. And now is a great memory for you guys too to look back on and laugh.
Well, the best part about it is that you can when you do the little photo pass thing, you can go and add, like, little, like, things to zhuzh up your pictures, like, they have, like, different texts and, like, stickers and things you can add to the photo, and one of the ones is, like, the little trail of fairy dust with Tinker Bell at the end, and it says, "The happiest place on earth," and so I put that right underneath that picture, which always makes me laugh.
That's great. Yeah, back of their head, but forever in their hearts.
So let's talk a little bit about just what the research says. We think there's a link between depression and social media. It's a logical thought that social media can affect how we feel about ourselves, whether or not we measure up, if we're a good enough parent or spouse or whatever it is. But research actually demonstrates there might be some truth around that idea. There's been a number of studies that have shown a correlation between social media consumption and elevated levels of anxiety and depression. And social media has also been linked with increased depression and depressive symptoms, negative body image, sleep problems, and of course, cyberbullying, especially for, well, I feel like now for anyone, adults or children, but I feel like it is a problem for younger people for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense that there would be these links here, especially when talked about how naturally, right, we all compare ourselves in some form or fashion, but social media really does provide just such quick access to kind of run through like an instantaneous, even if you don't mean to be doing it, right? And I think with that too, it's easy for it to become very habitual, you know? So when it's just kind of part of your daily usership on social media is evaluating of self as you're consuming, right? So that makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Well, now this is probably a good opportunity to talk about why self-comparison can be harmful. And there's a few ways. First off, it can cause an emotional drain. And research has demonstrated this correlation between repeated comparison and higher levels of depression and anxiety. It can also stunt your growth. If you're always comparing yourself either to people you know or to what you see on social media, that can really take hold of how much mental capacity you may have for other things that would actually improve your life or how you feel. And it can affect your relationships. If you're constantly feeling inadequate, the dynamics of your relationship can become affected. You might start having some resentment brew, and you may start to put up some walls in defense. And of course, it probably comes as no surprise that it can affect your self worth. A well known side effect is having negative self esteem. If you're comparing yourself to others a lot, you may start to engage in negative self talk. Not only can this damage your self esteem, but it can also lead to decreased confidence and increased anxiety.
So then how do we stop doing it? How do we stop comparing ourselves to other people? So we have some things, some action steps that may help you break that cycle of self-comparison. So the first is to start observing your thoughts. Notice when you're engaging in self-comparison. When are you doing it? And how are you feeling when you're doing it? Are there patterns to when it happens? Before we try to change a behavior, it really helps to be more aware of that behavior and when it's occurring. And so that goes into the next one, which is creating more self awareness. And so, how do we do that? Well, you can practice mindfulness techniques. We do have an episode on mindfulness if you want to get really in depth on learning some mindfulness techniques. But try the next time you find yourself comparing yourself to someone else, take a pause. Acknowledge that you are actively comparing yourself. Take a slow, deep breath. Examine the emotions that you might be experiencing. And then just ask yourself, what purpose does it serve for me to compare myself? What am I hoping to accomplish by doing this? And then explore where that need and those emotions are coming from. The next step in self awareness would be practicing non judgment instead of comparison. And so we'll walk you through a couple of things to demonstrate how to do that. So practice observing judgmental thoughts and statements and say to yourself, a judgment thought arose in my mind. You can also count judgmental thoughts and statements. How many are coming up? You can replace judgmental thoughts and statements with non judgmental ones. And the way you do that is describe the facts of the event or situation, only what you observed with your senses. Describe the consequences, but keep to the facts, not your feelings or opinions. Or describe your feelings in response to the facts. And remember that emotions are not judgments. So be careful about responding with judgments instead of just your actual emotions about things. You can also observe your judgmental facial expressions, postures, and voice tones and be aware of those. You can change those expressions, postures, and voice tones into ones that are more positive or less judgmental. Or you could tell someone about what you did today in a non judgmental way or an event that occurred and stay concrete. Only relate to what you observed directly. And that's a good way to practice staying out of that judgmental zone.
Those are great tips. You can also limit situations that often bring about self comparison. If you're noticing, oh, this is coming up a lot when I use a certain social media platform. So that could even include spending time with a certain person or group that seem to bring about you having thoughts of comparing yourself to them. Just think about what often precipitates the self comparison and start limiting your participation in those things. It's okay to step away. And it's perfectly fine to abstain from social media use altogether. Or take a break. Take a long break. Can it completely. Also, growing your gratitude can definitely help if you find yourself frequently comparing yourself to others. Now, if you've listened to our podcast before, you're probably thinking, oh boy, here they go with the gratitude again. But there are common themes in what can bring us peace, relief, and confidence. Thinking about the things that you're grateful for in your life and thinking about what are some positives that you may be overlooking in the process of comparing yourself to others. And here's a hint, they don't have to be huge, life changing things either. You can try looking each day at the small things you're grateful for. Take it a step further by writing those things down. And at the end of the day, just jot down 2 to 3 things that you're grateful for that you experienced in that day. This practice will start to shift the way you think from one of, I'm really lacking or my life is missing something in this way, to one of actually appreciating the things that you do have. You could identify some goals and start working on them as well. When we are accomplishing things, whether those are big things or small ones, that can really boost our self confidence. And it can help shift our mindset from a place of not being enough or not having enough to one of growth. It also can bring you back to being grounded in yourself versus looking to external influences or external validation. And finally, using some support. While seeking support from a therapist can always be helpful, sometimes just opening up to a friend you trust can be healing too. Often we get stuck in our own perspectives, and having the support of a friend that we love and trust can help us shift our thinking. And you might be surprised to learn that they too struggle with self comparison.
One thing I was going to say as part of our final thoughts or anything we have is because I've had this come up in session with people where they are feeling down on themselves because usually it's around parenting, but I want to do this with my kid or that with my kid, and I feel incapable or I feel like it's too much. But one thing I always remind people is you don't actually know what that other person's life is. Like there could be somebody that you are just thinking like they have it all together and everything for them is wonderful, and you don't actually know what demons people are struggling with, or what things that maybe they don't talk about, or maybe they present, you know, their relationship as something that it's not. You never really know. So I think that's always important. to remember that you may be comparing yourself to something that's not really what it seems.
I think that's such a great point. I think we all certainly can see life through that grass is greener on the other side sort of view and tend to forget, right? The grass can actually be very green where we're tending and watering it. And one person's green grass may actually be fraught with fire ants, weeds, things that are not so great for them in their life.
Yeah. So, just in conclusion, while using other success to motivate or inspire us to reach our own goals can be very helpful and push us to try the thing we've been avoiding, take the leap of faith, or pursue our own goals, comparing ourselves to others can certainly negatively affect how we see ourselves and how we feel about ourselves in general. If you're constantly comparing yourself to others, try some of the interventions that we've shared today. We appreciate you joining us. And if you haven't subscribed already on your favorite listening platform, please do so. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please reach out to us at dhbhs.media@hitchcock.org. And thank you for listening.